Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. I'm going to close this real quick. Hello, everybody. This is Joey Chandler with Funk to Flow Training, and we are on uh, basically day 3 of our interview series. And just so you know, we do these interviews Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and it's where I'm interviewing people who are doing interesting things. And my main goal is to figure out how to get a few nuggets of knowledge from them that help you, the listeners, and me take the next step in doing what's important to you. Because I figure it's not about taking the right step. It's not about taking the biggest step. It's simply about taking the next step. And let's see. So yeah, put it down. 9:30 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Or sorry, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Except for this week. Tomorrow I have a prior commitment that I won't be able to get to. But today I got somebody who's I'm super excited about because it's something that so many people want. When I was writing up the little flyer for this, my wife was like, "Ooh, I want that." And so I'm really excited today. His name is Wade Galt. He has a program that is essentially about increasing your productivity so you can have more time off. And without sacrificing your income or any of that sort of thing, you get more time off, more revenue, so that you can spend more time with your family, going on more vacations, and basically just living a life that's run by you rather than the hours that you have to put in at work. So yeah, his name is Wade Galt. I think he's going to be totally awesome today, and I want to introduce you to him. Where you go? Hello, Wade. How are you?
Doing great, thanks, Joey. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you bringing me in here.
Yes, thank you. So I just got to know, so you got this thing how did you come up with this? Like, everybody wants this and everybody talks about it, but are you doing this for real? Like you're doing 4-day work week? Like, how does that work?
Sure. So first of all, the most important thing I think for people to get is it's not perfect. It's not always in the sense that, gosh, 6-8 years ago, I got to a 4-day work week and I got to it for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. And then all of a sudden an income source shifted. And then also we had a second child. And so then I went away from it for a while. Then I came back to it. I've been doing it now for the last 2 years. Over 95% of the time, if it's a Friday, I'm usually at the beach playing volleyball. I'm down in Naples, Florida. Or whatever it is that I like to do, or hanging out with my wife, or doing cool stuff like that, or kids stuff at the school. And a lot of it just started out with the idea of, well, why am I working? What do I want to be doing this for? I was blessed to be raised by a father who's an entrepreneur, and he was always talking about, time freedom and money freedom. And so for me, that was all about, well, get older. I don't want to be just trying to do this when I'm 60 something. I want to do this along the way. And being somebody who's involved in athletics, you learn very quickly that you're getting older when the youngsters start beating up on you. And so that was just something for me that I always had in mind, and I was always looking for how. It probably took me 15 years from the first time I left my business job or my job in the corporate world as an employee before I really locked it in for a while. Then lost it for a bit and then got it back for a bit. So it's a process, but somewhere there was a decision. There was like, I'm going to do this. And most people haven't made that decision. We decide we won't work on Sundays. We decide we might not work on Saturdays maybe. But, well, what if you just decided you weren't going to work on a Friday? Or what if you decided, some people say, well, I won't work for less than X thousand dollars. Okay, well, what if you won't work more than X amount of hours? So that's kind of where it starts.
But to be clear, what I love what you're saying is you're not perfect at it. Sounds like a lot of time it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you're not, I don't have to go in and say, okay, it's kind of like I don't have to be vegetarian all the time. If I can be vegetarian a little bit of the time, it will increase my, if that's one way you want to eat. But just to take it on as a way to go rather than something that I have to do all the time and then get upset when I don't.
Absolutely. And that's something, first of all, it's funny you mentioned the vegetarian thing. That's how I got to eventually becoming vegetarian is, okay, I'm a vegetarian 3 days a week or 4 days a week. And then I tried the vegan thing, which is so much tougher. And then I embraced a term that Roger Love used at an event you and I were both at, where he talked about being a dirty vegan, which I love that. I thought that was so great. I'm a vegan, but I cheat sometimes. And it was just that sense of, gosh, progress. And just on that same topic, sometimes vegans' worst enemies are vegetarians. And I'm like, no, don't you get it? They're trying. They're moving in that direction. And so sometimes people say, well, wait, when you say 4 days, is it 4 by 10 hours? Is it 4 by 12 hours? Well, when I'm at my best, it's 4 by about 7 or 8 hours, so about 28 to 32 hours a week. But I have busy times a year. I have deadlines. I have times where maybe cash isn't going the way I would like it to, and that sort of stuff. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that I've had to embrace, and it took me a long time to do it. And I've heard so many speakers say this is, I wanted to come out and say, it's perfect. I've nailed this. I'm making $500,000 a year, and I'm not making $500,000 a year, but I'm making choices that get me where I want to go. And one of the things that, for me, spirituality is a big deal, not religion so much so, but spirituality and connection with God. And one of the things I resonated with was something I heard Wayne Dyer said when he said, he felt he came here to be a teacher on independence and self-responsibility and so on. And he said, so as far as he understood that, God said, okay, well then get your ass in an orphanage. And because that's the life wisdom. That's how you learn that. And so for me, in wanting to help regular people, quote unquote, not just entrepreneurs, because entrepreneur, as you know, there's a wide range. There's entrepreneurs that are making billions. There's entrepreneurs that are struggling to pay their bills. So there's no magic to that word, and people get caught up on that word. And so for me, hey, we make decisions sometimes. Sometimes we reduce expenses like everybody else does. I'm not a hero. Parents for their kids reduce expenses so they can afford stuff for their kids or whatnot. But so for me, being able to play with it and see, yeah, certain times a year I can work harder and get more results, and certain times I'll try things and it won't get results. And focus primarily, at least initially, with entrepreneurs. The way I started was I was an employee, and I just looked to, and I would ask my boss, what are the results you want me to get done? Because when I started doing work, I was 12 years old, or 10 years old, I was mowing lawns. And I knew the job was, the income was per job. It was to mow the lawn. If it took me 3 hours or 2 hours or 1 hour, I got the income. And so as I started talking to my employees, I said, well, what's the result you want from me? What's the result that I could get for you? And this is a huge, looking for takeaways. If you're in a job where you do a good job, because I was in a job where I was doing really well, I was recognized as a good performer. And this is 1999. So this is many years ago, before flex hours. Flex hours as a term was just starting to come out. But I would just say, well, hey, I want the time freedom that I can pop out of work when I want to, or that sort of stuff. But I'd ask my boss, what is it that you need done? If you got exactly the result you wanted, what is it that I could get done for you where you'd want to pay me like 20% more, 50% more? Or put simply, what do you want me to get done in a week? And if you told me that, what if I got it done in 4 days? Would you really be mad if I didn't show up on Friday? Would that bother you? And in my case, I never got specific freedom to say, okay, you don't have to show up on Friday, but I got the freedom to say, wait, as long as you're getting the results. And of course, like any other job, people say, oh, when you're a small business owner, you have no customers. And as you know, and as I know, well, no, you just got a lot more customers, or a lot more bosses, than you did when you worked for one person. But if you can help understand what they're really looking for and deliver that, not too many people are going to be upset if you're not there, so long as you're there when you need them and you deliver what it is that they're asking for and you're promising.
Right. I have to say, because you mentioned something that I was actually thinking about as I was getting ready for this. There's a lot of people who are working by themselves, and you can kind of imagine creating a 4-day work week. But what do you tell all the folks who they work? They hop on they drive to work, and they got a boss, and they got teams, and all of that kind of stuff. How do you work with those folks? What do you tell them to get started? Because that to me seems like a real challenge.
Okay. So some of the best advice I got was when I was working a job I didn't like too much. And one of the guys who was there knew, well, not many of us liked the job very much. And he said to me, Wade, let me give you one piece of advice. And this was a guy who was married and recently had a kid. And at the time I was single, he said, don't ever get into a job and make too much money at something you hate, because then you get trapped. Oh, huge. This was like message. I was like, okay, huge deal. And so I just always first came from the standpoint of, well, if let's say I was in a job and I was making $40,000 and then a year, and then I eventually got up to making $50,000 a year. But what if I kept my expenses at $40,000? Then at least mathematically, I would not need that 5th day of the week to earn the income. And now it just becomes about negotiating with whoever the owner is or the boss is. And so there was a book I'd written years ago, Put Your Money Where Your Soul Is. And this was just all about how do you make the most of the money you already have, the relationships you already have. How do you weed out the relationships that are time wasters, whether it be bad TV, whether it be a friend or a family member who's a pain in the butt, or who's just not taking anywhere, or who's bringing you down. I mean, just about every coach has said, if you want to grow, there's going to be some sort of collateral damage. There's going to be relationships that you've got to choose, that you invest less time, and maybe there's not damage, but you start investing in a different area. And so from that perspective, for me, I just looked at, okay, and this was easier at the time because for a while I was living at home and I was single, and I didn't have kids, and I was keeping my expenses down. So the idea of, okay, at one point I was making 50,000 and I didn't need 50,000. So I was putting away a lot of it. And so just that idea was like, to most people, I'd say, well, you know, look at the expenses you already have. Because what a lot of people run into is, man, I hate my job. And if I'm going to work so many hours at this job, well, then I'm going to go blow a bunch of money on the weekend. And you say, okay, well, you know, or, I mean, you know, think about if you went to college or when you were younger, you might have only been willing to pay $1 for a beer. And as we get older, you know, go to a restaurant, we pay $8 for a beer. And it's like, well, why do you do that? It's the same beer. And so from that perspective, whatever it is, just making, like you would save for anything else. For me, I look at it as something as simple as, okay, I love my convertible car that died 3 years ago. Now, I work from home. I don't drive much. And the main thing I do outside of family stuff, we have one car in the family. We've had one car for about over 3 years now. And I got a nice bike. And when I want to go to the beach, I ride my bike to the beach. And I get more exercise. I don't pay for the gym membership. And so there's certain things where I also happen to have a little bit of a tree hugger, Birkenstock wearing, want to save the planet bent on my angle. So I thought, okay, until I'm waiting for the Jeep Cherokee that's electric. I'm not sure when that's coming. But anyway, you know, so I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to challenge myself to ride my bike as long as I can, go without another car. And I could afford another car, but how long can I do that? It's been 3.5 years. I'm getting better exercise. And yes, it does save me some time. So in my mind, I know if I make a certain amount of dollars per month, so let me give you an example math. If a person made $4,000 per month and they work 20 days a month, I'm going to make it real simple, just 4 weeks, let's say. Well, then they make $200 a day. Well, if they could save, and especially for entrepreneurs, if you're working for yourself, if you can cut 200 off your expenses, well, that's one day that you don't have to work now. And so a lot of the times as entrepreneurs, especially, we have this sense that, well, you know, if I invest in something, magically the business gods are going to make it rain from the sky. So if I were to say you want to buy some, you know, land somewhere on the Brooklyn Bridge, you'd say, no way, Wade, that's my personal money. But if I told you, hey, you want to drop 10,000 on some marketing campaign, somebody else said they got money on you, might say, yeah, that's awesome, because somewhere we think there's magic. And so a lot of this, again, it's about saying, in my budget, I budget for Fridays off. And so that's part of my budget. So I have a time budget. I don't just have a financial budget. I have a time budget. In fact, I more have a time budget than I have a financial budget, because for me, I'm going to pay off all the stuff one day anyway. The little bits in going back and forth, living in Peru, my wife's from Peru, so we spent on and off 4 years living down there, moving back and forth, different life experiences we've had. Those to me are guaranteed return on investments. I've done stupid stuff. I've lost 5 figures plus in real estate, almost 6 figures in investing, doing stupid stuff. Because I wanted more lifestyle. And I just thought, well, wait, why don't you just have more lifestyle? It's like the whole Charlie Sheen, you know, with Wall Street. I'm going to, you know, when I make all this money, then I'm going to ride a bike across China, which I love. It's an example Tim Ferriss gives, you know, in the 4-Hour Work Week in his book. And so, you know, you can just rent a bike and ride across China. You don't have to wait until you make millions of dollars.
Okay. So if I'm sitting there and, you know, if I'm listening to this, and what would you say are, like, you know, 2, 3, or 4 things that I could do to get started, you know, moving this along?
Absolutely.
Also, You there, Wade?
I'm here.
Oh, wow. I have no idea what just happened. Okay.
Not sure what happened there.
Sorry about that, everybody. Let's see. I was asking Wade, what are a few things that people can do to get started in this? If they're like, I want to have that. I want to invest more time in my own time. And then what are some things that you got, some road bumps that you see your clients, kind of come up with that get in their way, on a regular basis?
Sure. So the first thing is you've got to decide you're going to do it. And doesn't mean it's going to happen in a week. Doesn't mean it's going to happen in 10 weeks. In my case, it took me 16, 17 years. There's an example I love that Tony Robbins used in an audio I was listening to once where he said, what if your kid couldn't walk? How long would you try to teach him to walk? And he said, well, of course, you'd try to teach them until they walked. And so for me, this was something that, kept at it. Specifically, I have a simple 3-step process that I find people can do is, first of all, is to see it. That is to envision it. Imagine, what would it be like? What would I be doing with my time? Who would I be spending my time with? How would my work week be different? What sort of things would I be doing? And so important, more important even than what would you be doing, is what would you be dropping? Because there's only, there's 168 hours in a week. We've got to, especially when it comes to time management, we've got to figure out what are we going to let go of to make room for things. But so first, envision it, see it, whether you do it through a guided exercise, whether you just have a great imagination, whether you write it down. People have different styles, but think about what would it be like? And you can even do that in timelines, like, gosh, in 3 years, I'd like to have it be that I'm working this number of hours. So first of all, see it, just get an overall vision of what it would look like. Second is start making some sort of a plan on what that would look like. Well, start getting a little bit into the numbers. Well, here's specifically what I'd do. Here's where the money would come from. Here's the time that I would be doing. If you're an entrepreneur, here are the things I might delegate that I know I still have to do, that have to get done. But here's how I'm going to do it. And then finally, you just start doing it. And, when people talk about coaching, there's a big difference. I know you know this, Joey, between coaching and training. Training is what it's supposed to look like in the pretty textbook. And we say, hey, here's what it looks like. Coaching is the other 80 to 90% of the time when it doesn't go the way the textbook said it, when it goes kind of like it did, and you run into the obstacles and you run into the things. And so some of the most common obstacles is one of the first things that I mentioned and you caught on to and addressed is, and I did this for so long, it was perfectionistic. It had to be perfect. It had to be exactly this. It was all or nothing, instead of something as simple as, hey, you know what? If I could take one Friday off in the next month, and maybe for the next 3 months, maybe for the next year, I just take one Friday off per month. And then maybe next year or next quarter, I take 2 Fridays off per month, or whatever it is, or could start with a half of a day. A lot of the times when I have people who are entrepreneurs, I'll say, let's say, just to use a simple example, let's say you're working 40 hours a week. What if you just, this month you work 40 hours a week, and next month you work 39, and the next month after that you work 38? Because a lot of it's just about our mind being able to believe it's possible. Because if our mind is convinced that it's not going to happen, it's really a tough sell. I've done it times where I didn't believe it was possible. I made these huge goals. I watched some motivational video, and I was going to make $10 million in 5 hours a week and that sort of stuff. And that's where, for me, it's got to be something that's realistic, or at least that I believe is realistic, that I'm willing to keep going at and keep trying, even when I run into obstacles and problems, which are going to happen, or hiccups.
One part I love about that, and it fits in right with my own experience, because I've done that too, where you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And what I realize, and what I focus on in my work, is just simply, it's about just taking that step. It's just taking about a baby step, a baby step, a baby step. And I think Tony Robbins says this a lot. You overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 5 years. And I love that you're just like, look, take 1 day off a month, like as a goal. Like that's the first thing. And that's I think everyone, that would be manageable. 1 day, 1 day a month. And then maybe, 2 days a month or something like that. And you just take the baby steps to make that happen. And then after a while, you may be able to get down to once a week, or, who knows what.
Yeah, and specifically, so first of all, if you're an entrepreneur, most of us can do that if we have the permission, because it's just about giving ourselves permission. If we have, or it might be having coverage. So I do have a business model, or a business that I own that's a software business. And so we need to have tech support 5 days a week. I don't work 5 days a week, so I need to make sure that's taken care of. But in addition to that, if let's say you're an employee and maybe you have 2 weeks paid vacation in a year, well, you might say, okay, I'm going to take one Friday off every month. But then again, I'm going to start talking to the boss and say, hey, next month, if I took off a day without pay, because that's the key. It's not a paid vacation day. But if I got all my work done, would you mind if I took the very last Friday of the month off without pay? If I get this done, or in fact, again, to make it sweeter for the person, let's say, to use a simple concept, let's say I work 20 days and I normally sell 20 things. Let's say I'm in sales. If I sold 21 things, but I did it in 19 days, would you let me take the 20th day off? And so you start, again, this is not about trying to pull one over on somebody. This is about saying, I want a more entrepreneurial type opportunity. And yet you might still say, well, wait, but I don't want to be a small business owner. I like my job. I like the people I work with. I'm not looking to go, but there's middle grounds. And again, when I started doing this years ago, there weren't very few middle grounds. I'd even asked a couple people, hey, I asked for the opportunity I wanted. And the answer was no, because things were that way. And most people even said, Wade, man, the answer I got was, Wade, I wish we could do that for you, but if we did that for you, we'd have to do that for everybody. Now, part of me thought, well, you mean you'd have to make everybody productive and accountable? I thought that'd be pretty cool. And right. Some people like that and some people don't. But you find, I know, as working with people who are employers, one of the most common targets of people for employees, for example, are stay-at-home moms. Because you have stay-at-home moms that are very intelligent very often, they're college educated, they've been doing work, and they simply stop, not because of intellectual capacity, they stop to raise their family. And so there's a lot of employers who say, oh yeah, I'll have you, work 20 hours a week. These days, to get somebody who's competent, who does a job well, 10 hours a week, I'll take it. So it's also realizing what you're worth, but also being willing to be told that, no, you're not that. So what is it you want, and can you do those things? It still goes back to Business 101. It's not about what I think is awesome. It's about what does my client want and can I help them get that? And so, again, the 4-day workweek business is one of the things I do. I also have some very almost sort of traditional sales coaching, business coaching, software, almost sort of like less fluffy things that I do, if you will, or less coaching type things that are very hardcore and results oriented. And I help people get results. And if I can do that, then I can kind of prove that I'm worth a certain amount.
Wow. I love it. I love you've broken it. You're taking a very systematic approach, which is the amazing part. It's not like you're saying, I just want to do this and you're just cut everything out. You're like, no, this is, you're like thinking like, what does it take? What do I have to do? Who do I have to enroll in this idea? Who do I have to get behind it? Where am I likely to fail? What stumbling blocks are there? What coaching do I need? Do I need to be a better salesperson? Do I need to be better at my job so I can do it faster? All that kind of stuff I think is I really get it as a lifestyle, almost sort of as an approach to life, as opposed to just a approach to get time off.
Yeah, because I failed a lot. so I've done the thing. I did. And in fact, one of the other pitfalls is, well, I'm just, because I coach small business owners. And one of the things we do is, oh, well, I'm just, I call it SCUD delegation. Remember the SCUD missiles from years ago? SCUD, I'm delegating anything. It's almost like a little child that has a tantrum and says, well, I don't want to do this anymore, so somebody else is going to do it. Now, if my name's on the door and nobody else does it, I'm the one that suffers for it. So I did that too. And I also did the thing where I just started taking Fridays off, but I never got more effective at what I did. So it's not just about saying I refuse to work. You've got to come up with something that's going to, again, become more effective, more efficient. Now, again, the funny thing is, a lot of the times, it's not about doing more. It's about dropping, it goes back to a lot of the 80-20 rules of dropping some of your worst clients, some of your worst projects, or for us as entrepreneurs, being able to admit when something's a hobby, i.e. something we thought was going to make us a lot of money but doesn't make squat, versus something, even no matter how much we love it, because we want to do our soul work and our passion and save the world, and that's great, but sometimes that doesn't pay the bills. And we still have to pay the bills as well. So being aware of, for me, what's a hobby, what's a passion? This book I wrote 17 years ago. Still have not mass launched it. I give it out, I share it, I give it to my clients. It's integral to the work of this 4-day workweek stuff. So I'm finally finding a place for it. And I have other books I'd written on spirituality, which I have no intention of making money off of, but I just want to reach people with. So there's different things, but being clear about what is actually a moneymaker. So on one hand, it's very warm and fuzzy. Let's spend more time with our loved ones and our friends and our family and do what we want. And on the other hand, it is extremely grounded. So the best way I'd say it's kind of four-dimensional. It addresses the physical dimension, the emotional dimension, the intellectual dimension, the spiritual dimension. Whereas a lot of, at least in our Western culture, a lot of what we do is about numbers. So I call that the intellectual, if you will, and doing, the physical. So it's do and get numbers and do and get results and do and get results. But what about when people get unmotivated? They don't have a reason why. They lose their why. You hear that all the time in all these coaching things. You know, their why. They lost their reason why. That's that spiritual dimension. Or they've lost their passion. They're not emotional. They're not excited about it. And so for me, it's, again, a lot of this is from a lot of reading, a lot of different authors, and a lot of stumbling, but coming to realize at the end of the day, I still have to come back to Business 101. What does my client want? And as Zig said, if I can help enough people get what they want, then I can, you know, kind of get what I want.
I love it. I love it. So let's see. So we're gonna I'll post all of your website and everything. Just the name of the program again.
Okay, so the website is 4dayworkweek.com, and I actually have a gift for you and or for anybody who's watching this. There's a game plan I found. It's a roadmap to start out with called the 4-Day Game Plan. So if you go to the number 4daygift.com, you can get the coaching videos and the tool that takes you through mapping out how you get to a 4-day work week, whether that's going to take you 17 years like it took me, or whether it's going to take you hopefully a heck of a lot less. So that's a free thing. And then there's a coaching program I have called 4 Days in 4 Months, which is an aggressive coaching program for entrepreneurs to help them get to a 4-day work week in 4 months. And the one clarification is if you're making at least 90% of the income you need to earn a living, then chances are we can get you to 4-day work week or help you get there in 4 months. But we have some in-between programs and stuff as well. So yeah.
Awesome. So one of the things that I do to keep myself motivated and to help my clients and friends and family out is I send out these UR emails every day. And you picked a word which I love because so many people actually have shied away from this word, which is audacious. And so I know we always ask the same 3 questions to wrap up this these interviews. So where in your life have you been audacious?
Oh wow. Okay. I'm not as great at talking about myself, but I'd say just in continuing to try to do different things. I watched what my father did, and that admittedly gave me a lot of confidence to watch somebody succeed firsthand. But I guess I've just gone by the concept that I'm a big Wayne Dyer fan. You'll see it when you believe it. And that you just start doing what you're going to do, and you just start moving in that direction, and you'll figure it out. I'm a big person. You'll figure it out. You still have to take care of your responsibilities. You still have to make sure you're not leaving a wake of destruction and relationships and stuff behind you that are not good. But to me, as much as I love tenure planning, I usually don't plan much more than about 2 to 3 months out in front of me. I don't know that that's the best practice, so I'm not necessarily recommending that, but it's what I do. But I have the courage, and then part of that, I guess, too, is having gotten a very strong spiritual foundation from my mother, and I trust that the universe is a good place. I do believe there's a God. I trust God wants good things for me, and I trust that there's good stuff after I leave this plane. So for me, if all that's taken care of, I genuinely don't feel that worried about it, and I don't know if I'm right, but as with a psych background, I can say it's psychologically effective for me, or efficacious, as they would say, efficient or whatever, for me to believe that it works for me. So yeah.
Awesome. And okay, and who do you know that is audacious? Who's the person in your community, your friend?
My father.
Your father. How so?
Okay, so my father my parents are originally from the island of Trinidad and Tobago. I guess it's islands. And he was down there. He was already an athlete that represented the country. He was already somebody who had a successful business, but he wanted more for himself. And so he left all his success, so much that his friends were like, well, you're crazy. What are you doing? Because at least at that time, it's a small island. He's a big fish, little pond. He was in that top 1% of just everything, fame, money, all that stuff. of a provider for his family. Oh, there you are. I think you're.
Yep.
Oh, there we are. Did you hear that last part I said, or did you get?
I got that your dad was famous in all sorts of ways.
Okay, gotcha. So, and why I think he's so audacious, because he was willing to give that up to go study, which he was not a great student. He's socially a genius. He was the #1 agent in a Fortune 100 company for a year, and a top agent. So he's an awesome business person, but he was willing to go outside of his comfort zone to give up what he already had to get a better education, to be better for his clients, to provide a better life for his family. And so from that perspective, somebody who's, it's when I hear people say, oh, well, I got nothing to lose, I'll go for it. I admire them, but it's even tougher when you already have something. You're like, no, I locked this in. I worked for this. I already have something to lose, and I'm willing to give that up. So he's by far for me, and I mean, my mother did the journey with him, but I guess for her for believing him. And then again, maybe the one other person who's up there is my wife, who when she met me 17 years ago, and I had this apartment overlooking the ocean that I was renting, and she asked me what I did for a living. I was doing software, and I just showed her an Excel spreadsheet that she was audacious enough to marry me. So yeah, I guess that's pretty audacious too.
Yes. And if you were being audacious, in what are a couple steps that you could take in something that's important to you in the next day or so?
Sure. For me, it's really about prioritization, and it's just about what you do first. People, I think, make too much of, well, you didn't do this thing because it wasn't important to you. You didn't do your workout because it was important to you. You didn't spend time with your kids. And a lot of audacity is being bold enough to be okay with the mess that happens if you don't get to everything else, and knowing that whatever comes first comes first. So if you put your priorities first and you're bold enough to know that there might be a consequence. If I don't return a call to a client, if I miss out on this one thing, if I let a relationship go that maybe is an old friend or whatever it might be, but it's almost not even to a certain degree, but being bold enough to put your priorities first, and not in a selfish way, not in a bad way, but to say, this is who I am. And I don't mean necessarily about posting political extreme posts on Facebook or telling people I know this. And I just mean being bold enough to quietly and powerfully be yourself and accept the consequences of that. And
in this, I was get a little deeper on focus on these, but what can you do? Like today, if you were doing that, what are a couple things that you can do? Because I always like to get the insight, like for you, like what can you do if you're being audacious? What could you do?
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's funny you should mention that, because I'm already in a challenge and I'm working on this so much. Debbie Adea, you might or might not have met her at the event we went to at the speaker training, has us in this 10-day challenge. And I was planning on launching this 4 days and 4 months program 3 or 4 months from now, and I'm launching it next week. And so I'm actually in the process of basically speeding up this, because I do believe that it can help a lot of people what I'm doing. And so bold enough for me to release something that I'm a perfectionist. So I get nervous when I release things that are like 90% baked, because I really just want to get every single detail right. And so a lot of what I'm doing is being bold enough to put some of my other income ventures, not on hold, but almost a little bit to the back burner, and dedicate some more hours to something that's not certain. So that from a vocational standpoint, and then from a personal standpoint, one of the things I've been working on is just, it's kind of embarrassing. Well, I guess not the only one on the planet. I'm trying to be audacious enough to let go, to be, I've always been the geek, the dork. And so I compensated by that with, snazzy jokes or stuff like that. And to me, to be audacious enough just to be me and not try to, okay, well, hey, I'm doing this thing on working a 4-day work week. My friends, check this out. And I'm sharing these videos, the link for this thing that we're doing right now with friends, where I kind of feel like, who am I to help them? And for me, that's a huge thing, because I don't want to overpitch my friends, but yet at the same time, I know it's something that can help them. And yet it's funny, most beach volleyball players and surfers automatically figure out, if not specifically how to work a 4-day work week, at least how to enjoy life. That seems to be kind of in our DNA. I'm not going to really sell them anything, but at least maybe they can share some of my stuff.
Awesome. Well, wait, this has been great. I love the idea. To be audacious enough to be yourself, I think is great. I can't wait to see the the 4-day and 4-month program. We can't wait to see that come out. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Any last words?
No, just I encourage y'all, if, and you sometimes hear people say this, there's nothing I've done that's magical. There's nothing I've done that most people can't do. I don't know your specific situation, so I can't say you can do this or you can't do this or in this amount of time, and I don't make any guarantees. But whatever it is that you're looking to do that you've been waiting on, we're only getting older. So get to it. Take action on whatever that is, whatever that looks like for you. You might regret not taking action towards something you loved, but you probably won't, at least in the long run as things kind of settle out, won't regret taking action towards something that you value and that's important to you.
That's awesome, man. Thank you. Hold on for 1 second. I'm going to wrap up with folks, and I'll come back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joey. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you got some value out of this. I hope you can use it to either increase your productivity or shorten your work week so you can spend more time with the people that you love and doing the things that you love to do. And as a reminder, I have no interview tomorrow and Tuesday, but we definitely have some great ones on Thursday and Friday. Please, if you have any questions, write them below. Wade will be able to answer them as well, and I'll be able to get to you. And if you want to sign up for the UR email or take my Funk to Flow class, which is all about taking the next steps, please, I'll leave the links in below. That's it. Thank you much, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.